I mentioned, I'm here to present my PhD research. It's about macroscopic versus macroscopic freeway efficiency optimization using reinforcement learning. I'm happy to be here today to present my work and hear any feedback, any ideas. The outline for today's presentation will be first quick introduction, then we'll jump in microscopic optimization, objective methods and results. Then we will jump to macroscopic optimization, then again objective methods and results. Then we will have some conclusions and ongoing work, then future work after that. First of all, the main motivation for this PhD is about solving congestion of freeways, and congestion of freeways is a huge problem. As mentioned by MTO in 2021, the post-economic congestion in GTHA cost economic about $11 billion a year. So it's getting worse and worse every year. So this is my main motivation in my PhD. Second, I would like to highlight the difference between microscopic and macroscopic. In terms of traffic flow, if we talk about microscopic, it's like the driving behavior, how we perform driving, like how we accelerate, decelerate, change lane. These are all microscopic issues. Macroscopic issue, if we look at the problem from far away, like the flow in the freeway, the speed of the freeway, the bottleneck, how to solve congestion, this is macroscopic. So microscopic is about driving, macroscopic is about managing congestion, or managing the flow and speed, density, and so on. Then going to the tool I use is reinforcement learning. What is reinforcement learning? Reinforcement learning is a machine learning tool, and in this machine learning tool, we have an agent that deals with a certain environment and learns from this dealing with the environment. So I'm here in an environment, I don't know what is happening, I start doing actions, trying randomly different actions, and from the reward I get from the environment, I learn what is good actions and what is bad actions. I apply action to the environment, I go to a new state in this environment and get reward. This reward can be positive, so this action is good, and go to better state, or it can be negative, I can be penalized, so I learn that don't do that. It's like mimicking how human being learns, like a baby trying to stand up and learn how to walk. He tries to just stand up, he falls right hand side, then tries next time to stand up again, falls to the left hand side, and so on until he learns how to walk. So this is the basic idea of reinforcement learning. Then we'll move on to my PhD framework. Here is I have two main branches: microscopic optimization, which, as I mentioned, how to optimize driving behavior, and macroscopic optimization. In microscopic optimization, I did this with my colleague Tian Yoshi and under the supervision of Professor Berha Abdelhai, while macroscopic optimization is totally done with me under my supervisor. So here what I will present in this presentation in general. I will start with microscopic optimization. The motivation about that is basically the gaps in literature. We have some lately introduced RL car falling models, but these RL car falling models just mimic human driving, and human driving are not the best in terms of efficiency. They lack lots of optimizing techniques that can beat human driving, so they just mimic how human drive. Second thing, all of them has no speed limit. They neglect at all the speed limits. They depend that they are always in car falling mode. There is always a leader that they follow. Third thing, they only depend on leader. There is no dependence on the followers. So every vehicle just focuses on the leader, and that's what human beings do when they drive. But latest research shows that depending on both leader and follower, making bilateral control, makes better stability for the platoon or the traffic in general. So in our work, we focused on two things. First thing is doing bilateral control using RL, adding follower and leader to our objective. And second thing, making safe, efficient, and comfort car following model while optimizing efficiency. So let's start first by having the bilateral control. We have first our environment. As we talked about RL, we have an environment we deal with. We do actions and then go to another state and get reward. So our environment here is this ring network. In this environment, we have the agent is the autonomous vehicle. We have multi-agents here. This is every red car is autonomous vehicle. And the state here is vehicle speed and relative speed to the leader, spacing between the controlled vehicle and the leader, acceleration, my vehicle, the controlled vehicle, and target speed in the network. The action is just driving, just accelerate or decelerate is the only action can be done. The reward is 4 components. We have reward function that has 4 components: safety, efficiency, comfort, and stability. So in literature, RL in general, they have these 3 terms: safety, efficiency, and comfort. We add stability. And to get better than human car following model, we enhance the efficiency. So here are the components for the reward. So we have a function that contains 3 added functions. These functions are safety component, which is a function to penalize any small time to collision. Whenever we have small time to collision, we penalize the agent. Efficiency is a function to follow a fixed time headway. So we give the agent a time headway between vehicles to follow. In literature, they give the agent 1.2, which is the average human driving headway. That's why they mimic human driving. In our experiment, we aimed for better than that, so we aimed for 0.8. So our target here is 0.8 seconds target headway. Then the comfort is a function to penalize any sudden change in acceleration, the rate of change in acceleration. If it's high, we penalize the agent. Then the bilateral considers both safety and efficiency for leading and follower vehicles. Here we look both directions, between the leader and follower vehicles, and this is the control vehicle. So here is the loop network we talked about, but in details, this network is 3 kilometers dense with several speed limits, as shown here in this figure. And we compared our results to well-established baselines like classical car following models like Gibbs IBM, and newly introduced car following model like the bilateral control and the RL controls in literature. Here's how they control different or deal with different components, all of them. Here are some of the results. This is how we perform the experiment to measure the stability of the platoon. We have here a leader vehicle that has some oscillation in its speed acceleration, and we see how the stability of this platoon performs. Here we have some red bars. The white bars are just following oscillations. Here are the results of different controls, baselines and our control, and we see here in our control that our control can dampen all the oscillations and has less headway. The distance between vehicles is less. And to compare all the baselines with our controller in terms of each objective, we can see that our controller achieves the best headway. We have a target headway of 0.8 seconds. We achieve average headway of 0.83, while the others are mainly mimicking humans. Some of them are not mimicking humans, like Gibbs, for example, but still we beat all of them. The jerk function, jerk, which is the rate of change in acceleration, you can see that we have the least jerk, so the most, no, it's not the least, but in terms of comparing the others, it's from the best ones. We have only over car following model beating it and PCM, but also in safety, we are the safest car following model. After that, we thought about efficiency. So our other contribution is SECRM, which is safe, efficient, comfort, RL-based car following model. We thought about efficiency, how to enhance efficiency. Yeah, we achieved better than human car following model. In the other one, we aimed for 0.8 and we achieved better than that. But why don't we optimize efficiency? As we see in this graph, less target gap will get better capacity. And you see it's growing exponential. When we decrease the target gap, time gap between vehicles, we can achieve very high capacity. Of course, this one is very optimistic. We neglected everything. We only assume that cars in a steady state following each other in certain time gap. There is no acceleration, deceleration, just in steady state. So as we see, one lane, in this case, this is a very optimistic one, is achieving about 14,000 vehicles per hour if we achieve 0.1 second or 0.05. So why don't we try to achieve that? Yeah, human driving is here, about 1.2. We have two opposing goals. One is efficiency. Whenever we decrease headway or time gap, we achieve more flow. The other one is safety. We don't want vehicles ending up crashing each other. So we want to keep safer gaps, but we want to get smaller gaps. So we have opposing goals. To solve this thing, we formulated the safe gap, which we assume that in any car following situation, the leader vehicle can stop at any time. So at any time, the leader vehicle can apply emergency braking and come to a stop. So we assume that the follower needs to stop at any time whenever the leader does that safely. So we formulated that using basic motion rules. And we got that the gap has to be larger than or equal to this number. And this number depends on what? This equation depends on leader velocity, follower velocity, leader acceleration, and follower acceleration. So we have now a time gap that we have to achieve this one or greater, and it's variable in terms of this variables. So now efficiency can be defined to follow the minimum time gap. So we have to keep safe, so we can follow this one, and at the same time efficient, because if we follow the minimum time gap which is safe, we have the maximum efficiency. For that, we design a car following model to have variable target gap, because this one is not constant. This term changes whenever the leader follower velocities and acceleration changes. So now we're working on literature in general, as we saw in the last set of slides. We have a target set time gap. So we have, for example, 1.2, 0.8. But in this paper, we want to do the variable thing. And this variable thing can be better than literature in three main things. First thing is any given time gap can be either inefficient or unsafe, depending on the situation. So from the last equation, we saw that the safe time gap depends on follower leader acceleration and speeds. So any set time gap at any driving situation can be either larger than the safe one, so it's inefficient, or it's smaller, so it can be unsafe. So the solution is to have a variable time gap. Second efficiency formulation, we formatted that time gap, target time gap in terms of speed. So we follow the safest, the highest speed that keeps us in the safe region. So if we have safe and unsafe car following model, we follow the highest speed to keep us safe. In this formulation, we can achieve different goals, like being in steady state, being in free flow, or car following, because it depends on the speed, following a car, or following the speed limit, which is absent in literature, or for example, poor visibility. If we have a certain range, we want not to get higher speed, be able to stop in this range of visibility. So this formulation can achieve several goals. Also, as we see here, learning target speed is simpler than learning time gap, because our action is just acceleration. If we have acceleration as an action, it simply affects the speed directly. But time gap is not affected by acceleration, it's also a function of controlled vehicle acceleration and leader acceleration. So it's simpler to achieve speed. Here are some figures to show what is the safest target speed if we have here leader speed and follower speed, starting from 0 to 24 meters per second, and 0 to 24. At each set of these ones, what will be the safest speed to follow. And here is how the agent learns. For example, if it finds itself in a state where it's here 15 and I'm in 15, we want the gap. This gap is initially 10 meters per second. Do I want to increase the gap for this speed or not? If I want to increase the gap, I will slow down, and this is here it's 15.1, then I will decrease the gap a little bit. And the gap, of course, depends on both this speed and acceleration. And here is another graph, which is a function of initial gap. What is the gap, and what is my current speed? So what is the safest next speed? So in this environment, I have only one agent, not like last one. One agent is the autonomous vehicle. I have human-driven vehicles around me, depending on the situation I'm testing. And again, in this one, the agent is the autonomous vehicle. The state are these parameters, which are easily gathered by any vehicles. You can measure speed, distance, and acceleration. The action is, again, acceleration or decelerate. And the reward is just two components. Speed component, which, as we mentioned, measures safety and efficiency. What is the safest, efficient, most efficient speed? And comfort reward. So we have safety, efficiency, and speed, and comfort reward. Here are the functions. So here's speed. This is current speed over target speed, which gives maximum reward. If I have lower speed or higher speed, I will be penalized. I just want to follow the target speed, which is the most safe, most efficient. And then comfort reward. Here is the rate of change of acceleration, which is jerk. I want it about around 0. If I have higher acceleration or lower acceleration, I will be penalized. So I need to be as safe, as comfort as possible. Again, here's some results. We tested several scenarios. First thing is regular driving, just driving on this ring with these speed limits. So it's the speed limits which are changing, but not that much. We can see here, this is time gap with time. We can see that our proposed controller achieves best time gap, or slightly higher than GIPS, but it's much more comfort than GIPS, because GIPS mainly follows the same formulation about following as near as possible without colliding to the leader vehicle, but it doesn't have any jerk component. So our model is the less jerky carphonic model and most efficient after GIPS. Again, here we set here all the learning models, learning carphonic models. The time gap target for them is the average achieved by Secron. Secron now achieves variable 1. So the set time gap for all other one, for fair comparison, we set it to be the average of Secron, not like human driving. And still, Secron achieves better. With comfort, of course. If we look at this one, at this table, here we formulated all possible time gaps and set for them the safest for them. Because our carphonic model, we said it's either inefficient or unsafe. If they follow the average of Secron, they can be, yes, efficient, but they can be in unsafe situation. So we tried several time gaps and ended up with a time gap that they don't collide with. So it's higher than Secron, but still safe and efficient, better than human. So here it's very clear that here, this one, to get them safe, they won't be as efficient as Secron. But if they get close to this one, like here, they will be unsafe. So just to get them safe, we will find that our model is beating them in efficient and in comfort. Next to that, we tried to test in emergency braking scenarios. So we have a leader now, and it applies emergency braking. So again, we gave all other models average time gap achieved by Secron. They all crashed except GIPS. So it achieved good headway. Still, this one is beating it. Our model is beating it, but it's jerky. So here we have less jerk, more comfort. And when we give all the other models the safe target headway, we can see, yeah, they can survive, they are not crashing, but still, this one is beating all of them in efficiency, and it has the least jerk of them all. Then we tested this car following model with against the other models in terms of speed following. Now it's not ring road anymore, it's just this section with different speed limits, getting up and down. And we can see here the speed, the bottleneck speed, at this section. Whenever this section changes the speed, these are all the models. We can see that the average speed difference from the target speed here, we achieve very good number at average jerk, which is the least, almost the least, after Gibbs in this case. Because Gibbs in this case has a term that penalizes this this sudden change in speed, achieving this speed doesn't allow this sudden change in speed, so that we have this very bad performance, but it's the least jerky. After that, we move on to macroscopic efficiency optimization. Mainly, it's dealing with a bottleneck, freeway bottleneck, how to optimize the flow at a given bottleneck. For that, we will use RAM meters, variable speed limit, and post together. So, to begin, in literature, RAM metering is a very classical topic and it's well studied in literature. But still, in literature, we don't have any study that analyzes microscopically or analyzes in details the performance of a large freeway with very dense ramps like QEW. We have ramps back to back from very short distances, and solving a given bottleneck just feeds more traffic to the downstream one and makes it worse. So in this study, we need careful analysis about how happens when we solve bottleneck in a given very dense freeway to achieve better results for a complete freeway. First thing, the main problem here is the bottleneck, and the bottleneck is a region in the freeway where the flow capacity, the capacity of flow downstream, is less than the capacity of flow upstream. So whenever there is a flow entering the bottleneck which is less than this capacity, it's fine. I can accommodate this flow and get it out without congestion. But whenever we have here input flow higher than this capacity, congestion is triggered at this bottleneck and it flows upstream. And as a result of congestion, we have capacity drop. If we remember this fundamental diagram, this is flow with density. So flow reaches a certain point which is capacity, and after that, whenever we increase density or high flow enters the bottleneck, we have this breakdown. We lose this part of capacity, so we have capacity drop, and we have another problem which is blocking of off-ramps. So whenever congestion goes upstream, as we see here, the off-ramps are closed, so even vehicles which are exiting the freeway are still trapped inside, which causes more and more congestion. A solution for that is to control the flow entering this bottleneck. And this control can be easily achieved by controlling the flow entering from the ramp or controlling the flow entering from the mainstream. And this is how the controller works. You can easily place simple traffic light on the ramp so that we just control any flow entering the freeway and achieve flow here near capacity. Or we can just change the speed limit at a section upstream to the bottleneck so that the output flow here added with the flow coming from the ramp is nearly equal to the capacity on the freeway. Or we can simply apply both together, just apply control to the flow from the mainstream and ramp so that the summation of them two goes together equal to the capacity of the freeway. Here is a very interesting video, that's why I hope to come here at the front, about visualizing the bottleneck. clear or not the voice. Okay, then we're just mentioning the solution of Freeway. It's a little bit paradoxy. If we want to arrive faster, we have to slow down. So this is a set of funnels. This is a Freeway bottleneck. And here is the cars, same amount of fries representing cars. In rush hour, we just rush in the bottleneck. Here's congestion happened. Here's how to place vehicles without triggering congestion. Just controlling the inflow to be near the capacity of this bottleneck. And to show the difference between them, we will now apply both together, congestion and rushing traffic here while freezing here. As you see, here congestion makes everything slower, but here if we just give enough flow, it will be efficiently passing the bottleneck. So, to test these controllers, we had several networks. This network is just from literature to test it, to replicate what is done in literature. We have this hypothetical network, two-lane freeway, upstream 4 kilometers, and as you see in this figure, it's very simple freeway. And again, we applied single ramp controller to a real geometry, which is Churchill network. It's a region on QW. And this network is 3 lanes, having 2 ramps merged together into the freeway. And here we have excessive demand. The demand here on the freeway itself is about 6,000 vehicles per hour, while here it's 35 vehicles per hour. So the average traffic per lane here is much higher. So the problem here is much more harder to solve than here in the hypothetical network in literature. Then we'll move on to a complete freeway, which is QEW freeway starting from Hamilton to Garden Expressway. It has 26 on-ramp. We have calibrated demand, which we got from measurements from real life and calibrated the network. To do that, we have 2 sets of controllers implemented. First is the regulatory approach, which is from literature. For that, we implemented a linear for RAM metering, which is a very, very famous controller in literature. Then there is an integral regulator for various speed limit. Then we put both together, apply first RAM metering, and whenever the goal is not achieved, still the bottleneck is activated, we kick in with various speed limit. All of these controllers are coded using EmSyn APIs. The networks are EmSyn network, and we coded this with EmSyn APIs. Then we designed other controller. As you see here, this is an agent, that's what we described. Agent dealing with an environment and receives back reward and state. In this case, we have the agent is either RAM metering or variable speed limit. The environment is in EmSyn simulated network. State is traffic condition at the bottleneck, like the speed, flow, density at bottleneck here at the merging area. Action is either RAM metering or value speed limit or both together. Gives agent either controls the RAM flow or mainstream flow, or give it both of them, both dimensions, and it decides. And the reward is just the flow coming out from the bottleneck. So to maximize the reward, I will maximize the flow coming out from this bottleneck. Here are some videos from EmSyn, from our hypothetical network. As you can see here, base case without any control. Congestion is happening here. The right lane is near stopping, and they fight together to merge at this merging area. Okay, if we see here in RAM metering, of course, it is much faster than this one, and merging is much smoother. But there are queues on RAM. You just get vehicles inside the network one by one. On the other hand, here are various speed limits. We apply here lower speed limit makes some artificial congestion. As you can see, this will make no queues on ramp. Vehicles can very easily enter the freeway from the ramp, but we have here a little bit higher density, lower speed, but compared to this one, of course, it will be nothing. We see that in the results. Here are some summary of results. I know this is lots of numbers. It's from the slide once. So compare this first, the base case without any control for both networks, literature network and tertiary network. Base case, we have total travel time split it to mainstream travel time and on-ramp travel time. So these three numbers, this all travel time, and this are the travel time on mainstream and on-ramp. The same for tertiary network. This is the total travel time, mainstream and on-ramp. Here are the demands for both networks. So we have the same profile as in literature with different modification to make the intersection between the peaks for higher amount of time, longer for both of them. But here, as I mentioned, 6,000 vehicles per hour for mainstream, and here 35. So this is a little bit harder to manage. And you can see that here. When applying variable speed limit for this network with this demand, the hypothetical network, we achieve 38% improvement in total travel time. And this 38%, if we split it between mainstream and on-ramp, we'll find that on-ramp is getting more benefits because they don't have any meetings, they just enter the freeway freely. But we can see that still freeway traveling vehicles coming from upstream on the freeway get benefits. So not just this one, but the vehicles that I slowed down on the freeway also get benefits, both of them. RAM metering can achieve higher performance. See, this is 38%, but this is 52.5% decrease in total travel time. This mainly comes from mainstream, because mainstream now don't face any congestion. The acceleration area or the merging area is congestion free. While on-ramp has about 12% increase in total travel time. Again, when we merge both together, because this I apply RAM meter first and jump with high speed limit, if the control is not effective, we can see it's nearly like RAM metering, but with better benefits distributed on both of them. On the other side, if we look at tertiary network, we can see that here nothing is achieved approximately, only 0.3% decrease in total travel time, and we can look in this more in details in the coming slide. This is because here we have 6,000 vehicles coming from the mainstream. So slowing these 6,000 vehicles will cause lots of delays, and it won't help because just getting this down a little bit and adding 12, 15 demand from the on-ramp, which is a higher number, it will still activate the bottleneck. So variable speed limit is not effective here, but still it's effective here. So when the congestion is higher, we can see that variable speed limit is not as effective as RAM metering. RAM metering here is still very effective. It gets 44.72% improvement in total travel time. Yeah, it duplicates the travel time from the RAM vehicles, but still overall it's getting 44% increase in total travel time. When we look at both together, we can see only 8% because applying any control to 6,000 vehicles on mainstream can cause lots of delays. So here, what we can see is that any control is better than none. And for the two-lane freeway, we can see that the capacity drop is much more evident. Like we have only 2 lanes, so merging from the right lane will slow it down as we saw in the video, so we lose lots of capacity. So the control is much more effective here, if we compare this to that. Moving to RL-based controllers, you can see here that in general, RL beats regulators. All the numbers are higher if you compare numbers to each other. And we can see also that reinforcement learning controllers can balance benefits more. If you see here, even in RAM metering with 58% approximate decrease in total travel time, we have benefits for both of them. So applying control, yeah, we delay the RAM, we delay the RAM, or we don't delay the RAM at all, but we control the input flow from the RAM, but we achieve better total travel time for RAM travelers and mainstream travelers, both of them. Again here, very speed limit is not effective at all, only 3%, which is very, very low improvement, and we will see later from where did this improvement came from. So, to in more insight, more in details, we can see here, this is the bottleneck flow, output flow from the bottleneck, and this is the ramp flow and mainstream flow. So we have 3 flows, one after the bottleneck, which is this one from the ramp, and one coming from the mainstream upstream. Here are the 3 control, base case without any control, Alenia, which is green, and RL. Here, it's very clear that we avoided the capacity drop. Any control can achieve high flow, here and here. But from where did the RL get this improvement in Alenia? It's clear from this part. If we look here at the demand and at the performance, we can see that RL-based controllers get vehicles out of the network faster than Alenia or regulator. It's clear from here and clear from the ramp flow. I served all the vehicles faster than Alenia. And it's clear also from the fundamental diagram here that we avoided capacity drop. Very high density here is not anymore after control. But as we see that higher flows are achieved by RL than in Alenia. But Alenia here tends to be more pulling vehicles outside the network or outside the bottleneck, because we can see here from the speed, bottleneck speed, that the speed in Alenia is higher than the speed in the regulator. So the regulator has lower speed but higher flow. Again, if we look at various speed limit, you can see the same thing here. They achieve higher flow, but not as RAM metering. You can see that all of the controllers here have higher flow than the base case. And from where did the benefit of RL comes? From that all RL controllers means the regulator gets all the demand out of the network earlier, so achieve better total travel time. Again, from the fundamental diagram, you can see that the RL controllers are better than area. The lower flow parts, here is the flow on y-axis, so the lower flow part here are all in the regulator part. Again, the regulator achieves higher speed at the bottleneck, but lower flows here. Okay, when we put both together, we can see that, again, bottleneck is not activated, but we have better serving the vehicle or earlier serving the vehicle by RL controllers. The good thing here, when we put RAM metering and right speed limit together, that we can see that the RL controller is better than in speed and flow, both of them, than regulator. Learn policies to look more how the RL dealt with the congestion. Here in RAM metering, it's very important to look at how the demand varies and the controller how deals with this demand. So in RAM meter, when we have very high demand, as we see, the controller like oscillating frequencies. This is the best solution that RL found, that I let some vehicles and pull back, some vehicles and pull back. Here is how it looks like. Here is a bar chart about the distribution of actions. Then in value speed limit, we can see that we tried several combination of value speed limit. Here we give the controller or the agent the freedom to control each lane alone. This is what's presented here, but in general, we tried different sets of controllers. Here we can see that the right lane has the lower speed, the freeway upstream, so that vehicles slow down on the right lane for merging vehicles, while the left lane is kept nearly uncontrolled at high congestion, at high demand. So here I slow down the right lane and keep the left lane going. This will do two things. Better flow on the right lane for the merging vehicles, lower flow, and will encourage all the right lane travelers to shift lanes and make space more for merging vehicles. When we leave everything for the agent to decide which controller to use, we just give it both directions, and it can use RAM metering or value speed limit. We can see that in high demand, it depends more on RAM metering. Gets lower RAM flow in, but the speed limit is not as low as in terms of if it's controlled only by speed limit. So speed limit, if we look at total travel time, it will be more effective. RAM meeting is more effective than various speed limit, and it's decided totally by the agent. It didn't interrupt the learning. Again, here for tertiary network, because of time, we only presented the learned policies because tertiary the problem is more harder to be solved. In RAM metering, as we see, we allow very low RAM flow to enter the freeway because the freeway itself has 6,000 vehicles. In very speed limit, the agent learn not to touch the 6,000 vehicles here. As we can see here, both left lane and right lane have very high speeds near the 100 km per hour, which is a free flow speed. But the only speed control part is here. Here is where we get the 3% improvement in total travel time, is when it's manageable or controllable, when the flows are input to the network are lower. And when we apply both together, if we look here, this is RAM metering. In this time where the demand is very high, we apply only RAM meters. Very speed limit is almost 100 km per hour. And then when we in a controllable area, we can apply very speed limit. Okay, moving forward to QEW, when we have full network, we have improvement, which is by RAM metering is about 14% when we coordinate between them better. Coordinate like each RAM sees the downstream RAM and take an action based on both RAMs. Each RAM is linked with one downstream RAM. And then very speed limit is only 3%. And when we apply both together, mainly RAM meter is the controlling part, so it's 14% like the RAM meter. So here are some heat maps. This is the calibrated network. This is how congestion looks like in the morning peak for this freeway. So when we apply RAM metering, it's very evident that we can't solve congestion upstream, but solving this congestion feeds more vehicles downstream, which causes still some congestion, and it's very obvious here that the congestion here is still unsolved at this part, because we get all the incoming flows here thrown downstream to this one, making the problem harder for this RAM to be solved. This is RAM metering, but high speed limit, I slow down the freeway to make vehicles enter easier, but still, this freeway, we have the distance between RAM is very, very narrow, so we don't have storage on the mainstream so that we can slow down. Whenever we slow down, congestion flows upstream, blocking upstream RAMs. That's why we only have this 3%. But still, as we see here, why the numbers in general is that low? To look into that, we have some analysis of total travel time or delays between origin destination pairs, between entering from upstream and going to Garner, which is the end of the freeway. Here we have, as we see here, is the base case without any control. The first column is RAM metering. We can see that we achieve very, very good results upstream. Going downstream in the first hotspot area, first congestion, we get lower benefits. Then going downstream to the end of the freeway here, we get increase in delays by 180% and 100%. This one deteriorates the overall benefits to be only 15% instead of 40% and 50% we saw in single RAM. And again, very speed limit, we can see that the benefits are equally distributed because we like helping all to merge on the freeway. There is nothing thrown to the end of the freeway, but still, because of the congestion created between regions and the very limited space between them, it still have only 3% improvement. The best performance achieved if we added a lane by the end of the freeway. Just we throw lots of flow to the end of the freeway, so we tried to add lane here for only these two regions, and we achieved these results. Everything is proven like by 90%, 80%, 70%, everything is much better. Okay, and conclusions for that any control is better than none, even for the complete freeway or single RAM. Whenever we apply control, it's better than not controlling anything. We have significant results, significant benefits. It's very clear if we have a RAM alone, isolated from the whole world. But when we place the RAM inside the freeway, there is a challenge to control everything because congestion is coming from downstream, upstream, from everywhere. So whenever we control one RAM, it's very challenging task to control the downstream one because we feed it with more demand. In RAM metering in general gives priority to mainline demand. I pull back RAM demand and give priority to mainline. For large network, there is significant improvement for upstream ones, but for downstream RAMs, it can be controlled till now. For high speed limit, it gives priority to RAM demand, but still for greater number of frames, like as we seen in the single RAM, it's hard to control them. Recommendation based on these numbers, we can apply RAM meters and add extension to this to add this lane by the end of the freeway. Okay, now ongoing work is we're just trying in the microscopic thing to make a complete card following driving model, not only card following. So we have card following and lane change, and this is done mainly by Ken Yoon, started his PhD, and I'm just working together to make it full model. And for macroscopic, we're designing RL-based controllers for the Freeway. Till now, we haven't presented anything, and we don't have ready results for RL controllers. It can be independent as the regulator, and then we move to coordination between controllers. This is how we can manage this very dense freeway with congestion to coordinate between RAMs so that the upstream RAM can see what is happening very far downstream. And future work after this PhD, we can consider the other scenarios. Till now, always RAM metering is more efficient because we have like space on the RAM to store vehicles, and we don't have to evacuate or to get out vehicles from very dense area like Toronto. All the regions on QW still have long RAMs, and it's not very dense compared to downtown Toronto. If we look at Gardner Expressway, if we look at ramps here in downtown, they are very short, and playing with any ramp to place a metering or anything can very easily get congestion to downtown if it is not there without control. And that's all. Here are the references, and I'm happy to receive any questions or any feedback about my presentation. Thank you so much.